Assalamu alaikum and good morning, ladies and gentlemen who are watching right now, media professionals. I am CAIR-MI Executive Director Daud Walid with you this morning, and I'm going to bring on some of my other team members right now. So we will start our virtual press conference, and which we'll be talking about the findings from our annual Civil Rights Report. How this will work is, God willing, is I'm going to open up, then I'm going to pass the microphone over to CAIR-Michigan Lead Staff Attorney, who will go into some depth about the results, the statistics that we have in our report. And that report will be made available on our webpage on cairmichigan.org. And for media professionals, if you would like to send your email address, you can email myself or any one of our team members who are on the press release. Then we can get you a copy of the, I believe it's 18 pages of our annual Civil Rights Report. So with that, we'll begin. CAIR-Michigan in the year 2025 had a significant increase of civil rights complaints in comparison to the year before. As a matter of fact, in the last 3 years of CAIR-Michigan's existence, we have had record numbers of civil rights complaints that we have not had since the founding of our organization in the year 2000, which includes the year of 9/11, 2001, and the year afterwards, in which these were some of the peak years of outward discrimination against Muslims or those who were confused to be Muslims, which includes Arab Americans who are not Muslims who have suffered discrimination through the trope of Islamophobia. CAIR National just released our National Civil Rights Report about an hour ago. These results are Michigan specific. As civil rights complaints are up all throughout the United States of America, per CAIR statistics, as it relates to American Muslims, there is some distinction between Michigan Muslims and national trends. CAIR National had logged in that the largest percentage of complaints for Muslims nationally related to workplace discrimination. However, in the state of Michigan, the number one percentage or the top percentage of discrimination complaints against Muslims here relates to watch list issues and travel issues. And that will be gotten into more later. But of course, we have the international border with Canada where people can drive across the Sarnia Bridge, as well as the Ambassador Bridge and the Windsor Tunnel, as well as a significant amount of international flights that come in through Detroit Metropolitan Airport, through both the McNamara Terminal as well as the Warren Evans Terminal. And so we'll get into some of those specifics, our lead staff attorney will. Also, something very troubling in our report that we see is that 79.6% of complaints at CAIR-Michigan are government related, meaning that an institution that is linked to a local, state, or federal government institution practice some sort of Islamophobia or anti-Muslim discrimination against our clients based upon our intakes. So basically, 8 out of 10 of our complaints relates to an institution that is discriminating against Muslims that is taxpayer funded. In other words, as African Americans talk about institutionalized racism in the state of Michigan, we have institutionalized Islamophobia. And our lead staff attorney will go into that a little more as far as the breadth of the different local, state, and federal institutions, including educational institutions, in which Islamophobia has negatively affected our constituents here in the state of Michigan. With that, I'm going to mute myself and turn the mic over to CAIR-Michigan's lead staff attorney.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Amy V. Ducouré. That's AMY. Doure, and I'm the lead staff attorney with CAIR Michigan. Our legal team works every day to ensure the civil rights and constitutional protections of Muslims are respected and enforced. The report that we're releasing today reflects the cases, complaints, and legal advocacy our office has handled over the past year. It provides insight into the types of discrimination Muslim communities continue to face and the legal issues those incidents raise. Behind every complaint, though, I'd like to say is reflected in this report is a real person whose rights may have been violated. A student who was trying to practice their faith at school, or a college student who was exercising their First Amendment right to speak out on an issue that they believed required meaningful change. An employee requesting a religious accommodation, or a community member seeking equal treatment from a public institution. Many of these cases that we handled last year revolved religious accommodations, including in the public sector, where individuals were denied the ability to observe their faith in workplaces, schools, correctional facilities, or other public settings. Others involved profiling, discriminatory policies, or unequal treatment by public officials or institutions. From a legal perspective, these issues implicate something that is some of the most fundamental protections in American law, including the First Amendment guarantees of religious freedom and free expression, and the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment, and federal civil rights laws prohibiting discrimination based on religion and national origin. The data in this year's report helps us understand where these violations are most frequently occurring. According to the 2026 Civil Rights Report, the 5 most common categories of civil rights complaints affecting Michigan's Muslim community were traveling while Muslim, government discrimination by either a federal or state official, hate crimes, employment discrimination, and law enforcement encounters. As Brother Daoud said, these account for nearly 80% of all of the complaints that we received last year. Compared to the 2025 report, the landscape has shifted in very important ways. Last year's leading categories were education discrimination, employment discrimination, law enforcement encounters, and then at the very end, we had watch list and travel-related incidents and hate crimes. What that means is that travel-related and border-related harms have risen sharply to become the single largest category in Michigan's complaint, increasing from 11% last year to 20.5% this year. At the same time, education discrimination, which led last year's report at 14.7%, is no longer among even the top 5 categories this year. Employment discrimination also declined from being 13.9, almost 14% of our overall complaints last year to just 10.2% this year. And law enforcement encounters decreased by over 3% this year. Hate-based incidents increased slightly from 9% to 10%. The 2026 report also sharpens a spotlight on government discrimination as the top category at nearly 11%, reinforcing the broader findings that anti-Muslim discrimination in Michigan is disproportionately tied to public institution and government-linked systems. One important trend that is reflected in this report is that here in Michigan, we have seen an increase in civil rights complaints this year, larger than what the national average is reporting. Even as national reporting in some areas shows marginal increases and sometimes just slight decreases nationwide, incidents across the country have remained stable or just marginally increased, but our intakes have gone up significantly. This tells us that the legal challenges facing Muslim communities in our state remain serious and require continued vigilance and advocacy. We are also seeing a direct impact of government policies and institutional decisions that disproportionately affect Muslim communities, whether through law enforcement practices, administrative actions, or policies that create barriers to religious accommodations and equal protection in public life. The report makes it clear that in Michigan, 79.6% of complaints involve taxpayer-funded institutions, including agencies such as DHS, FBI, and the Michigan Department of Corrections, along with public schools and public universities. These developments are occurring within a broader national climate where Muslims and Muslim civil rights organizations have increasingly become targets of hostility and misinformation. Unfortunately, CAIR-Michigan itself has not been immune to that environment. Over the past year, our organization has received Islamophobic messages, threats, and even death threats directed at our staff and institution, simply for carrying out the work of defending civil rights. The climate of hostility is also reflected in the report's discussion of targeted harassment and hate-driven incidents affecting Michigan's Muslims. But intimidation does not change the law, and it does not deter our mission. Civil rights protections exist precisely to ensure that no community is marginalized or excluded because of their faith, identity, or beliefs. At CAIR-Michigan, our legal work has included in the last year direct representation of individuals, engagement with institutions to correct discriminatory policies, administrative complaints being filed, and when necessary, litigation intended to enforce the law. Our objective is not to resolve individual cases, but it has been to ensure that institutions understand and uphold their legal obligations under the Constitution and state and federal civil rights laws. And this is why our work matters. Civil rights protections mean little if they are not enforced. When people are denied equal treatment because of their faith, the law must respond and accountability must follow. This principle can be found all throughout our civil rights report, where we outline the types of discrimination that people are facing, specific incidents of discrimination, as well as our legal victories that we've had over the past year. With that, I'd like to turn it over to our Civil Rights and Immigration Staff Attorney, Jad Salome, to give us an update about his work this year.
Unmute.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jad Salome. It's Jadsalame, and I'm the Immigration and Civil Rights Attorney for CAIR-Michigan. I want to speak to you about what the numbers in our Civil Rights Report tell us about the state of immigration in Michigan. The report contains a stark finding. Nearly 1/3 of all civil rights complaints we received in 2025 were immigration related. Let that sink in. For every 3 people who reached out to us for help, 1 was facing a threat tied to their immigration status or their travel. But that's not the whole story. When we look closer, we see that over half of all complaints, 54%, involved some form of government action. This includes watch list incidents, law enforcement encounters, and most critically, immigration enforcement. What this tells us is that the Muslim community in Michigan is not just facing random acts of bigotry, we are facing a coordinated system of government overreach. It's the family being pulled aside and harassed by CBP agents at the Detroit-Windsor Tunnel. It's the student whose phone is searched at the airport for no reason. It's the fear that an ICE agent might show up in a mosque parking lot, creating an atmosphere of terror in a place of worship. The aggressive enforcement policies we are seeing don't just target the undocumented, they target the right to practice our faith, the right to travel, and the right to due process. Our daily work is a direct reflection of the challenges documented in this report. We are assisting clients with their naturalization applications, guiding them through the process so they can one day exercise their full rights of citizenship. We are in the asylum office fighting for those fleeing persecution. We are in the immigration court, providing rigorous removal defense to families facing deportation. We are in direct communication with ICE, advocating for our clients' due process rights. We're drafting port letters to protect travelers from harassment when they re-enter the country. We're handling adjustment of status and accompanying clients to their USCIS interviews, ensuring they have an advocate by their side every step of the way. But individual representation is only part of the equation. We have ramped up our Know Your Rights trainings, going into mosques and universities to equip you with the knowledge to protect yourselves. Because we know that an encounter with any part of the justice system can now have life-altering immigration consequences. This is the reality of our work. It is proactive and defensive. It's about building a future for families and protecting them from harm. The data in this report is a call to action. We will continue to fight in the courts and in the community to defend your rights. We ask you to stay informed, stay vigilant, and know that CAIR-Michigan is here to stand with you. Thank you.
I thank you very much for both of your presentations. If there's any media professionals there in the comments that ask a specific question, please put it in the chat. I'd also like to mention that we have our colleague, the CAIR Michigan Director of Safe Spaces, Mrs. Subia Kidway, who's also on right now. Her department is not involved, or her job is not involved in directly responding to acts of discrimination per se, but her position is more proactive in trying to get positive policy changes and religious accommodations, both in the public sector and the private sector, and which also includes trainings. If you don't mind, Sister Subia, if you can kind of fill in the some of the viewing audience just in a couple of minutes about some of the successes that we've had in the past year, because we've mentioned a whole bunch of challenges and negative things, and then we have a question from one media professional after. We have two questions from a media professional afterwards. So if you can go ahead, Sister Subia.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Subia Kidwai. It's S as in Sam, O, B as in boy, I-A, K-I, D as in David, W-A-I. I serve as the Director of Safe Spaces for CAIR Michigan. In the past year, I've had the opportunity to work with the Department of Correctional Facilities and Detention Centers, where we've worked with chaplains in providing religious accommodations, making sure that the religious needs are met for inmates. So we've done donations for dates, made sure that they've received donations for prayer mats, kufis, hijabs, making sure the chaplains and the facilities understand what it means in terms of what times to open the fasts, what time to end fasts. We've provided over 216 copies of Quran, 300 prayer mats, 216 kufis, 150 prayer beads. We've served over 594 Muslim inmates and detainees, over 5 facilities, 882 religious items distributed, 70 plus schools and universities reached during Ramadan, accommodation guidance. We're building bridges, making sure that the needs are met, whatever is needed within the community. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So we have a first question right here. I'll address part of it, and you can add in Sister Amy. So you mentioned that CAIR Michigan's intakes are up compared to other civil rights complaints. Can you please let us know which data sets you're referring to? So when I made that comment is relating to national data at the Council on American Islamic Relations, based in Washington, D.C., as well as our specific Michigan data. So CAIR is the only nationwide Muslim civil rights organization that has chapters throughout the United States of America. So when we're talking about the data set, we're talking about specifically the data that comes in through the Council on American Islamic Relations. So again, in the past 3 years, CAIR National as well as CAIR Michigan's intakes have gone up to numbers far exceeding years that came before, including the years of President Barack Obama, where there began to be an increase of complaints against Muslims throughout the United States of America. And that tied in with the birther movement and the Tea Party movement, and then going back to 9/11, in which there was an extreme level of tenseness and outward discrimination, hate crimes, and as well as vandalism against mosques. Do you have anything else to add on, Sister Amy?
I just want to add that, yeah, 2 things. First, our intakes went up sharply after October 7th, 2023 by over 100%, then 23% the next year, and they're still rising. This differs a little bit nationally. Some of the other local chapters are reporting a decrease in intakes or marginal increase in intakes, leading to nationals results being just a marginal increase in intakes. Ours are much higher than I think the 0.03% that national is reporting. So when I mentioned that we're at a higher level than what's being reported across the country. That's what I'm talking about. Other chapters are reporting steady intakes, some decrease in intakes and some marginal intakes, but ours are still steadily on the rise.
And if we can also add on, as the previous year, the largest amount of complaints related to educational institutions, while this year's report relates to watch listed travel. And as well as we've seen an increase in terms of immigration customs enforcement complaints, or ICE. So there seems to be a correlation in the changing of administrations. We know that the Trump-Vance administration has been very aggressive in regards to immigration enforcement and in the name of securing the border. And we know the rhetoric that was set by now fired Homeland Security head Kristi Noem, right? So there appears to be a direct correlation between the changing of administrations, between the Biden administration and the Trump administration, with the rise of these sorts of complaints as it relates to our community. The second question is, can you each provide a specific significant complaint that really stuck with you from the last year, especially in the category you outlined regarding interactions with taxpayer-funded institutions?
I mean, it's hard to pick from, kind of the, cornucopia of complaints that we received against taxpayer funding. What I can say is that public institutions, including universities, are still very, very hostile to First Amendment speech related to pro-Palestinian issues or Muslim issues in general. And that led us to two events last year. It led us to filing a lawsuit against the University of Michigan for their discriminatory discipline of students on campus for lawful speech. And it led us to declaring a hostile campaign, declaring Wayne State University as part of our hostile campus campaign for their attack on the overall speech and the discipline of students who were engaging in free speech, that led to them arresting students and then having the prosecutor saying that they were over sharing their hand when it came to trying to have them prosecuted. So what we see is an overall assault on our university campuses and First Amendment that has trickled down to our high schools, quite frankly. It has chilled speech in high schools, and high schools have taken the similar stance as some of the universities. So for some of the First Amendment work that we're doing, that's probably the most striking problems that we received last year, quite frankly.
Yeah, and just in addition, when looking at our statistics, and Islamophobia is a bipartisan effort when it comes to institutions, local, state, and federal. So, for instance, we have a Republican administration. We have a state government that's ran by Democrats. We have issues that are supposed to be liberal institutions that are in Democratic districts with Democrat elected regents on the board of regents of universities or school boards. And we're still facing Islamophobia from them as well. So when we're talking about taxpayer funded discrimination from government institutions, my initial comments about watch list and ICE cases going up in no way should be seen as this is a Republican only endeavor. No, this is an issue of bipartisan Islamophobia when it comes to institutionalized Islamophobia. One more question. Why do you think civil rights complaints to CAIR Michigan have outpaced the national count or climbed more than that in other states over the last year?
If I had to give a short answer to that, and Brother Dowd probably has a better answer, but if I had to give a shorter answer to that, it's because there's a focus on Michigan when it comes to Muslims to begin with, right? We are seen as the place where Muslims reside in the country. It's a national identifier for Michigan, especially Southeast Michigan. And we have seen, we have, kind of borne the brunt of that, where we have institutions that are taking a shining to making sure that they make an example of the Muslims here in Michigan. So we also have part of our administration locally has been very, very vocal in advocating against issues that are impacting Muslims. This administration has spoken out about the Muslim City Council in Hamtramck. They have led, charges against, pro-Palestinian and Muslim protesters on campuses. So there is a fundamental understanding that it is okay to be Islamophobic. It is being sent from a national and a local institutional level, quite frankly.
Yeah, and just to add on in particular, the communities of Dearborn and Hamtramck are seen as basically the capital of Muslim life in the United States of America. So when we look at Mr. Lang, for instance, who was involved in the protest that led to some violence outside of Mayor Mamdani's office. Well, he first came to Dearborn to raise a ruckus, right, which caused national media attention as well as some arrest. There's threats against and he's not from Michigan. He came from outside the state. Threats against the Islamic Institute of America last year, which is in Dearborn Heights. The person that made those threats was not from the state of Michigan. The death threats that have come to CAIR-Michigan's office came from out of state, came from Florida, came from Georgia. As a matter of fact, tomorrow I have to go in front of the 35th District Court and testify about a death threat directly towards myself, right, at a victim impact hearing, right? So we have people who are, there are people who have anti-Muslim animus and hate inside the state of Michigan, but because of the high profile of Dearborn Heights, as well as Hamtramck, we had a lot of what we can say interstate Islamophobia, as Sister Amy said, people coming across the border and causing problems for us here in the state of Michigan. But those only account for hate type incidences. When we're talking about the bulk of our cases relating to watch lists that pertain to Border Patrol, Customs Border Protection, and ICE, another issue is that we are a border state, right? Michigan is a border state. So because of immigration enforcement and the high number of people who fly internationally from our community, who fly into Detroit Metropolitan Airport, especially from the Middle East, then it would lead to more cases such as that than, let's say, a CAIR office in somewhere like in Missouri, for instance, right? Like it just would be a different dynamic because of us being a border state and our demographic here. See if we have any other questions from media professionals. Okay, well, I believe that is it. And we will leave our information right here for those who like to get more information about CAIR Michigan. Thank you very much for attending. And again, our civil rights report will be online. I believe we can go ahead and put down a PDF file and put it up on our socials once we get off of here. There will be a brief video coming out later on today at 3 p.m. that's giving kind of like a summary, bullet points that can be shared, or that if the media professionals like to use. I mean, obviously, anything that is on this video, CAIR Michigan is given permission to media professionals in particular, if they'd like to use any of the audio and video from this. And to the Muslims perhaps who are watching, we wish you Ramadan Mubarak, Ramadan Kareem. May Almighty God bless you in the last remaining days of this holy month of Ramadan. And we pray to Almighty God that our politicians exert positive pressure on the Trump administration to stop the war in Iran and to put a cessation to the violence in Lebanon, in which we have a large percentage of our constituents are Lebanese Americans, such as our staff attorney here, Jad. He's a Lebanese American. We have a lot of friends and people who have family members who are negatively affected by the military assault taking place by the Israeli occupational forces. So with that, we conclude, and thank you very much for coming. God bless you. Assalamu alaikum.